Tara, I'll start with you. Why is Haidar al-Abadi considered someone who would be able to change the political situation in Iraq?
Well, I think it remains to be seen if he's going to be able to change. But whether or not he has a better probability of being able to change the political situation than Maliki, I think everyone would agree it is yes. If you saw today, you have Brett McGurk tweeting from the State Department in support of this election. Most of the U.S. government, Joe Biden, has already called Abadi supporting this election. I think the reason for this is if you look at statements he made an interview with the Huffington Post about a month ago. His language, his rhetoric has been a bit more conciliatory towards the Kurds, towards the Sunnis. So there's some hope, some optimism behind this pick. Although he wasn't aide to Maliki, he is a member of the same party as Maliki. So we're going to have to see. But I think it's the U.S. is supporting him because it's better than going with the horse that's already been leading the race, and that was Maliki. Exactly.
Well, Colonel, do you believe al-Maliki's refusal to step down will lead to military conflict within the Iraqi forces? I mean, those that are loyal to him versus those that are loyal to the president?
Trish, I think it's distinctly possible because what we see here are the makings of a preemptive coup d'etat. When you look at the way in which Maliki positioned tanks around the presidential palace and around several other major government installations in the Baghdad Green Zone, it had the hallmarks absolutely of a coup just all of the 1960s or 1970s. And when you see that kind of activity, I think al-Maliki is living in the past. I think that it'll be less likely that he will actually be successful in staying in power, because I think he's lost a lot of support within his own party and within the Iraqi political establishment, especially among his own Shiites. But the issue still remains that he is not going to go without a fight, and that's going to have a significant impact on our ability to get things done in northern Iraq as well as anywhere else in the Middle East.
You know, Tara, let me ask you, is he not motivated, al-Maliki, that is, at all by the common enemy here, the Islamic State, and a need to save his country?
I mean, you would think he should be with everything going on right now. Unfortunately, we've seen time and time again, not just in Iraq, but in many countries, personal preferences, power, and other motivations impacts leaders' decision-making processes. So if he knows what's best for the country and he knows what's best for the political process there, I think he'll realize he has to step down. But we've seen time again leaders in both democracies and dictatorships sometimes succumb to different types of motivations that are not in the best interest of their country.
Right. You know, Phil, I want to go back to you for a moment. Under Iraq's constitution, Abadi has 30 days to form a government. What do you anticipate happening over the course of the next month during those 30 days?
It's a crucial time period, and it's one I think United States officials, Brett McGurk, as Tara mentioned, is very involved in this process, and I think you're going to see the U.S. do everything they can to assist him, if they can, throughout this process. I think the way the U.S., the phone call with Joe Biden, Brett McGurk, Secretary of State John Kerry, the way they've thrown their weight behind him, and again, it's not necessarily because he's their favorite pick or he's their only pick, it's that he's the guy right now. They need him to succeed. They've gone all in behind him right now, and I think U.S. officials over the next 30 days have everything at stake here for this to succeed. So, Trish, while U.S. is not going to try and be overt here, obviously they don't want Iraqis to turn against this pick, they will be working very closely behind the scenes to give him the best shot possible to find some type of inclusive government over the next month.
Well, Colonel, tell us, what do you think that means? I mean, will the U.S. need to become more involved in such a way that we might see additional airstrikes, even ground troops there in Iraq?
I think it's possible, unfortunately. I think that in this particular situation, the ground troops, could come from different sources. They may not necessarily be American, but there has to be some kind of ground presence in Iraq in order to affect the change that we seek, both in northern Iraq as well as in Baghdad. And unfortunately, I think we're getting to that point where there has to be some kind of a measured effect that is taken into account when we work this. And the administration is working very hard, as Phil mentioned, to really put this together in a way that I think is somewhat logical, but it also begs the question, why didn't we do this sooner?
Well, Colonel, can you give us any sense of timing? I mean, how long might it really take to contain this group right now and to get the country back on track?
Well, it depends on us developing a strategy, and I think in this particular situation, we really are the victims of the fact that we don't have a strategy. And I think it will take a long time, first of all, to develop a strategy after we've already started engaging ourselves in this issue. And because we're doing it in this way, it's kind of backwards. But the timeline for this, easily 6 months to a year before we really start seeing results. I think ISIS will stay around around for as long as they can hold on, and they will be a very tenacious, very tough opponent, and it'll be very difficult to dislodge them, and especially physically, but more importantly, it'll be difficult to dislodge them from the hearts and minds of the people that they've already converted to their cause.
Well, you know, Phil, let me ask you, there's certainly been a lot of fatigue amongst many Americans who feel like the last thing that we should be doing is involving ourselves in Iraq again. What is this going to mean domestically for the president and for Democrats?
Look, it's simply unpopular to be taking military action in Iraq. Actually, to be frank, military action just about anywhere right now after the decade plus of war that the U.S. has been faced with. I think right now there's a couple things the president has to worry about right now. Obviously, on the American people's side, the poll numbers simply do not support any further action. I think that's why you've seen administration officials, the president himself, so thoroughly stating no ground troops, no boots on the ground, things of that nature. But the problem is mission creep. As you heard the Colonel say, 6 months to a year. The president refuses to put a timeline on how long these strikes might take, how much they will expand over the course of a certain time period. Trish, the longer these strikes go, the more the president risks losing his own party on this issue. So you have the politics and the policy side. There's no quick resolution here, and there are a lot of risks that the president is taking as long as this continues to go on.